Okay, so it's August 23rd, 2019. I'm going to show you how to rescreen this patio door. It works the same for windows as it does for patio doors or any kind of sliding door. The only thing this will not pertain to is like an Anderson door with a hideaway screen. That's done a lot differently, and it has some springs in there that are very dangerous and that could hurt you if you take it apart incorrectly. So we'll cover that in another video. Just as soon as I get to the point where I have another customer that needs that done. I've only done it once. It's really not that complicated. However, it is much differently done than this. So let me show you what we're going to do with this. I'm going to show you a close-up of what this looks like first. Now, a lot of the times these handles will overlap where the spline is. This piece of rubber that runs in here is a spline. Sometimes, like this handle on the back side, sometimes it's screwed in here and comes out this way. If it does, you just take the couple screws out, set them aside, and put it back on when you're done. As you can see, this spline is already hanging out part of the way. So all you do is pull it out. Now what I use, if it's stuck in real well, I use a small little flathead, a slotted screwdriver that's made for like eyeglasses or iPhone repair, and that gets underneath of the spline very well so that you can pick it out. See that? So keep one of these on hand. Keep a flathead screwdriver that's larger on hand, a Phillips screwdriver, a very sharp razor blade. I use these little wire cutters because a lot of the times if you replace the spline, or even if you're putting the same spline back in, sometimes it stretches and you end up coming past at the end and having excess. You just snip it off and tuck it in there. So I keep all of these things. You'll also need a tool for installing the spline back in. One side has like a groove in it and one side does not. The side that does not have the groove is made for pushing the screen in first, and then the side that has the groove in it is supposed to straddle the spline and help you push it in. I rarely use this flat side, but let's get to it. I'll show you how to do it right after this. So after I recorded the beginning portion of this video introducing what I was going to be showing you, I realized that the fan that was going, because it's August and it's very warm here in Pennsylvania, was probably making it difficult for you to hear. So I apologize that the intro was a little bit loud. Let's get right to this. So once you get the spline pulled up, you're just going to pull it out. Now, splines come in different sizes. So what you should do, if the spline's no good, is take it to your big box store, or your local hardware store, or whatever, and match it up and get the same exact size. If you get a smaller size or a larger size, you're not going to get it in there. Now, this spline is broken, as you can see. It only ran from here to here. That's okay. You're better off with a complete spline, though. A complete spline will make it so that you have a continuous tension on the screen. So I do have some extra spline, and we're going to replace this one. Old screen, you can throw it out, or believe it or not, you can actually cut this up into tiny pieces and use it to patch drywall holes. You can take this, soak it in your mud in your pan, stick it to the wall, and smooth it out. And when it hardens, you can drywall right over it. I'm not going to do that, but I've done it before in a pinch. To measure out how much screening you'll need. Now this is real thick. This is made so that pets cannot pull through it. Or not as easily anyway. Pull your door out, sit this on here, and let it hang a few inches past the end of the door, about 3 inches. and roll this out. Now when you get down here, you want to do the same thing, and you want to come about 3 inches past the bottom. Now, I always tell everybody, make sure you're keeping your screen even with your door. This way you know you're getting a straight cut down here. It's really not important as long as it's enough past the end of the door, but straight cut is better for starting the next screen. Now the most important part of starting this is you want to make sure, I always take the screen and make it even with the end of the door where I start. This way I know the overhang on the other side is plenty. If you start here and you end up going crooked, you could end up with this out like this, and then it won't meet the corner. See how that corner looks over there? You'd never get that tucked in because this came over here. So always start out with your screen even with the end that you're starting with, right to the end of it. And as you're installing this screen and putting the spline in, you want to make sure that you maintain that it's right on the end. If it's not, move it over and put the spline in. Now, in order to get this screen tight and make it look right, the first one that you stick in, it's crucial that you keep it even with the end of this. Then you know it's in there completely straight. Okay? Let me show you how it's done. Take your spline and lay it completely across the top of the door. And I use this flathead. I will put this spline right into the corner where it goes. And I tuck it in with this first. Now you got to be a little bit careful doing this, because what will end up happening is you can poke it right through the screen, and that's not something that you want to do. Now I only push in like 2 portions of it, and then after that I use the proper tool for it. So I make sure this is even with the end. I pull the spline tight. I'm stretching it a little bit, putting that in the groove, and just wheeling it in. Take your time. Don't try to do a big section at a time. This is still even with the end. Pull the spline tight. This looks all wrinkly, right? Don't worry about that. This is still even with the end. If it's not, if it's overhanging out, bring it in, pull the spline tight, and wheel it in all the way down to the bottom of the door. You want to take your time with this, because once you ruin it on this side, it's not a big deal because you've only done part of the door, one section. But if you get almost completely around the door and then this slips off and goes through your screen and rips it, you're gonna be bummed out. So take your time. Don't be in a rush. Like I said, keep this even with the end, pull the spline straight, and do little sections at a time, like an inch or 2. If you don't have time to do it right the first time, where will you find time to do it again? Now this isn't going to get into the corner. So what I do is I take my flathead screwdriver and I bring this around the corner, leave it bunchy so you got extra slack in it, and use your screwdriver to poke it down into the actual corner where it's got to go. Just like that. Now, what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to pull this a little bit tight, not real tight, just so it takes the flex out of it when you're putting the bottom in. Let me show you. So just a little taut. And I didn't pull on the spline to stretch it at all, because I just want to get it started in this corner, which is essential. Now you're going to pull it a little taut, stretch the spline, and put it in. See how that works? Does that look nice? Now I'm going to do it along the rest of the bottom, same as I did the side here. I'm not going to bore you with it. So I apologize, I left the fan going in the last segment again. It's hot. It's easy for me to forget. So now I've got across the bottom, and I'm at this corner, and I'm not going to try tucking this corner in yet. What I'm going to do is throw the spline onto the door or window or whatever it is, and I'm going to turn it around. Now, does this look familiar? We're back right where we started. We're in this left corner, working our way down what would have been, just like the first side. We want to make sure this was even when we do it. Now we're going to make sure it's tight when we do it. We're going to stretch this, stretch our spline, and tuck it in. And that's how you get the screen nice and tight. That side we lined up with the edge when we put it in. The bottom, we just made it a little bit taut, just a little bit, just to take the wrinkle out. This side, we're going to stretch it tight, stretch this tight, hold it with our finger, and put it in. But first, I have to put that corner in. And again, this is where my screwdriver comes in handy. There we go. Using the groove side of the wheel, pull the screen tight. Whoops, that corner pulled out. You see that? And that's why it's important to have it in there good. So it must not have been locked in. So let's push it back in there. Pull this side tight. There we go. Now it's in there. You can even take your wheel when you get close to the end like this and just try pushing it down in there just to make sure it's locked in. The corner is very, very, very important because that's what allows you to tighten the rest of it up. Just don't accidentally drive your screwdriver through your screen. Okay, so now we pull this tight. We pull this tight. And we put the spline in. Pull it tight. Pull the spline tight. Put the spline in. I have the camera sitting here so you can see better, but I need to be able to pull the screen tight, and the weight of the camera on there will mess up this screen being nice and tight. Now it doesn't matter if you have, this is crooked now a little bit. Mine has like a maybe ½ inch here, and well, this handle's in the way, but there's like a ½ inch, and it drops down a little bit. As long as it goes like ½ inch past where you want it to go, as long as you can pinch it and pull it, you're okay. So don't be concerned if it don't look straight to you or anything like that. That doesn't matter. Now it takes a little bit of time to get used to doing this. Your first one might be a little difficult for you. I assure you, after about your second or third screen, you'll be just as good as me at it. And it's important you stretch the spline though. Just remember, you're putting tension on the spline. So it's nice and tight in there. You notice this one is not going to reach across the bottom. It's not long enough. And it's brand new. Just opened it. So I will end up having to put a piece of the old spline in there. Now that's okay as long as you butt the two ends up right to each other and continue. It won't matter. Like I said, if your spline breaks in 3 parts, you can still do it. It's very difficult if you end at a corner and start at a corner, because you don't get that pull so you can stretch it properly. All right, let me finish this, and when I get down there, I'll show you how I use the other spline. Besides, I got to turn the fan back on. I'm melting in here. So what I want to show you is the spline comes down, it goes around the corner, and it ends right here. Okay, so I got to go from here to there with a piece of the old spline. That's not difficult. It's not at all difficult. We're just going to pull this tight, start it off, and do the same thing. Just hold it taut, just like that. Not real hard. Just pinch and pull lightly. Just see how the lines in here just change, bend, look like they're bending a little bit. We just want to ensure that you can bounce a quarter off of here when you're done. Right now it's loose. You pull it tight like that. It's tight. So let me show you how to do that. Alright, so here's a piece of the old spline. Now what you want to do is, we're going to start it right here, butting it up against the old piece, the new piece rather. But you don't want it hanging off the workbench. You want to make sure you have support under it. Always make sure your spline, the trailing part, is always heading in the direction where you're going to start. Pull this a little bit tight, line it right up with it, and you can use your tool to get it started. Pull it tight. Now what I don't do is I don't stretch the old spline. It's probably beaten down by the sun and it'll probably break fairly simple, pull apart. So I don't stretch that. I only stretch the new spline. Pull that taut, hold it, and roll it in. And then I pull it off the workbench a little bit so that I can work on it. Just need to bring it a little closer to me at times. So just like that. And then I want to show you something here. Just pay attention real quick. I want to show you something. You see how this is really crooked here? It don't matter. I have plenty to tuck in. You can't see if that screen is slightly crooked in there. Your eyes don't focus on that. All you see is that the door is screened. So if this is a little bit crooked, these little tiny lines in here, you won't even notice it. Well, now I got all this excess. So I measure what it takes to get to the corner and I clip it off. And we can use some of that in the future if we have to. And then I'll just roll this last piece in. Now I'm going to show you the #1 way to mess up your beautiful new screened door. Check this out. So your door looks wonderful. Look at this. Look how springy that is. Nice and tight. You could probably bounce a quarter off of it, to be honest with you. This is a post base for like a 4x4. Look at it. It's nice and tight. This next step is very important because you don't want all of this excess on your door. Obviously that doesn't look proper. The only way to get it off properly is to cut it with a razor blade. But do not hit this screen with the razor blade. If you slip and hit this, because it's so tight, it's done. It'll pop and rip right away. It'll pop probably as good as a balloon would. Now what I do is, it's important you have a brand new razor blade. A dull razor blade will make it very difficult. Corners, I won't say they're difficult, but they're the most troublesome. Reason being is your corners, when you cut along here, you can't cut in that corner very easy, and it's a good opportunity for you to slip and hit this screen. So what I do is I cut a little bit here and a little bit there and just keep poking at it until it comes free. I'll show you when we get to that. Right now we're going to start here and we're going to go all the way down that end. Now what I do is I place the razor knife onto the screen that I want to protect, and I go right above the spline, and as I cut I pull it away just to make sure. Now see right there, it's still stuck, so I go back and that's free. Now let me show you this corner. See if I can give you a good view. What I do for the corners is pretty much the same thing. I cut right above the spline, and then the corner's free, but not the whole corner. Then you got to dig in there, try to get it a little further, and always cut away from your screen. Cutting away like that until you've got just this part free. You don't have to get the whole corner, just the part you're working on. And then I continue. And now that this is free, I can pull on it so I can see if I don't get the cut right. Now, because it took me 2 tries right there and it's still connected, I know it's time to flip the razor blade. That razor blade might still be good for cutting other things, but it's not good for the screen. You need a really sharp blade here or you will screw yourself up. Take it slow. This part of the job should be the slowest part of the job, period. Cutting right above the spline. And when you get to handles and stuff, this one's not going to be a problem, but some handles are a problem. Take your time around them. Don't go too fast. Now I know I look like I'm speeding along. I've done it 1,000 times in my life, but even me doing this 1,000 times, I could screw up. And then take the piece you cut off, throw it away, unless you want to throw it in your drywall box. Now I'm going to spin it. I'm going to do the same to the bottom, same to the other side, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Now I see right here the spline is sticking up a little bit. Doesn't look like it was put in all the way. So I'm going to push it down in there. And as you're cutting, you're going to notice things like that. You're going to notice if the spline looks like it's up a little bit in one area. If it is, take care of it, because otherwise animal pushes on it and the next thing you know, or a kid pushes on the screen, it pops out and they're calling you back to fix it. Under warranty, so you're not going to get paid for it. I don't tighten these down. When I put the first one in, I don't tighten it all the way down. I leave it a little bit loose, just in case I got to move the handle a little bit. And then when I get the second one in, I tighten that down and go back and finish and tighten that one down. These are the handles I was talking about just a couple seconds ago. All right, so there you have it. I cut off all the excess. It looks very, very good. Nice professional job, as you can see. And like I told you before, it's very tight, even in the middle, to the point where it bounces. It's nice and strong. The splines is tucked in everywhere, and it is ready to be reinstalled. If you have any questions about doing this, leave them in the comments. I do answer all comments. Sometimes it takes me a day or two, but I do answer them all. So I appreciate you watching. If you like videos like this, go ahead and subscribe. This channel is really here because I have 3 daughters, and someday I'm going to die. And when I do, because we all do, they're going to need to be able to ask their daddy how to do things. So I made this channel originally with them in mind, but I never mentioned it until this video. So this is to my daughters Blaze, Katana, and Kiara. I love you all, and when you need to know how to do something in your house as you get older, hopefully Daddy can help you. So here it is, guys, the completed door. See you on the next one.